So I've been thinking about the quote where if you're an actor, you're supposed to act a little bit like the lawyer of your character. You don't have to agree with everything that they do, but you're still supposed to defend them. And I think that's a bit of my job here as the adapter of this story. I have to try to understand all the characters and kind of defend them in a way, even if I don't, of course, agree with everything they do. And I also think, like I was mentioning in the live with Mo, that you're going to adapt a story differently at different stages of your life, you know? And so I think this is going to feel very personal to me as I connect in different ways to the different characters. You know, I think I'm going to write Sabra inspired by my mom as a woman who never sat down. um, and I'm also maybe gonna write her based on my mom and the fact that she didn't outgrow some old ideas that she was raised with, and how damaging that can be. That's very very personal to me. But I also think there are things I connect with all these other characters too. You know, I am very proudly working towards my sobriety, and so I'm going to put a little bit more heat on the drinking than any adaptation does with Yancey, where there's a part of the chapter where he wakes up and he literally needs like 3 fingers of whiskey before he can stop shaking in the morning before he can eat anything. That's someone with a pretty heavy dependence. And the movies kind of only ever show whiskey every once in a while as like this funny, silly little, we'll do a drink because congrats or whatever. I'm not going to take it that lightly. She does say in the book, you know, like he never was like drunk, but that also could make sense as a wife kind of defending that, like, oh, well, at least he doesn't, dot, dot, dot. So I'm gonna have that be there because again the movies make him so cartoonishly perfect and romantic as this Western hero. I want to show his flaws and his depth as well. So that's something that's kind of personal to me because I feel like there's a version of me that like if I didn't get control of my drinking and stay sober, I could be the person that's just has nobody at the end and is just out in the wastelands, you know, in obscurity. That's terrifying, and so that is his end. It is not a glorious ending. Um, with other characters, I'm especially enamored with Dixie. Like I said, there's so much history of the West that is being settled by the very brave women and sex workers of the time. There's a lot of great quotes I've gotten from this book, like I've talked about. One that I was just thinking of again is talking about all the fancy ways they would decorate their saloons and make it so inviting, and the music, and it says, it lent a touch of gentility to an otherwise drab and harsh existence, altogether a civilizing influence, whether the males were aware of it or not. And there's other lines where it's like the women in these brothels were pretty much the only reason these men would ever bathe or like brush their teeth or whatever. Like they brought some humanity to this very rough place, some feminine energy, if you will. So I want to get more from Dixie in this story, and I think her ending is so acutely tragic because the women really won't leave her alone and will do everything to kind of smite her out of the city essentially, and then they eventually effectively win in that, and she basically dies of a broken heart as they take away her adopted child that she was so happy to have. So that'll tell you a lot about the damaging effects of these cultures and things like that. But with her character, I'm very connected to her story and being someone who is liberated. And she even has a funny line earlier on where she's just like, what, and be a school teacher and get paid nothing to be around yelling kids all the time? No, thank you. So she has a lot of agency and control in her story, and I love that. So I'm going to be very personally connected to that, and want to give that a little more, amplify that a little bit, bring up the volume, as it were. There's one scene that they add in the second movie that gives Dixie a little bit more that I really like. And she's talking to Sabra, and Sabra's basically just like, I haven't seen my husband in 5 years. Is there any chance he reached out to you? And eventually, kind of, she reveals, like, no, but I have heard from his friends that he's off messing around here and there. And the scene ends up with them having this moment of connection where Dixie's basically able to grant her the compliment of, like, you're very attractive, like you don't have to feel insecure about your sexuality and your femininity, like you're a very desirable woman, kind of a thing. And then she just walks out of there glowing, like Saber unable to even think about that about herself and get this compliment from the woman who does this for a living. It's a very sweet scene, and so I'll have to think about that because I'm certainly not looking to add complete scenes, but the idea of getting some more from Dixie, and because I think what's heartbreaking is they could have been people that worked together in this town and they could have learned from each other, and that's this other thread that doesn't exist So hopefully people will feel the same heartache as I do as I go through the story in that way. But anyway, I just wanted to talk about that in a second, for a second, as we think about these characters, how they're going to connect to me personally, how I need to kind of defend them and protect them and fight for them and give them their due in ways that others have kind of snipped their stories out, just because it makes me uncomfortable to deal with topics of racism, um, doesn't mean I can just ignore topics of racism and cut them out of the book like the other movies have for the most part. So I want to be, I think when I doubt myself, I can just rely on being all the more accurate to the story. But I do think as I spend more time with it, I'll know better, like, okay, this seems to be a recurring motif. I kind of think of it as a whole chapter as like a long melody. And then over time, as I really dig into it, I'm going to try to get some more quotes written down today so I can feel a little bit closer to some of these chapters. I'll have a better sense of like, this is a recurring motif. This is what I want to lean into. This is kind of the flavor that's coming up, the strongest flavor. And so it feels really cohesive because I think it can be hard too with novels not feeling too episodic. I mean, I personally loved To Kill a Mockingbird, reading it and watching it, but they don't always feel like movies because they just are kind of like these separate chapters. So I still very much want it to feel like a movie by the end, and where I decide to give various amounts of emphasis and time and focus. So, yeah, I'm excited, but just wanted to share that thought about kind of protecting and defending my characters as a lawyer might.